Hello, I'm Foon, and I write the website hustlecastle.site and obviously make YouTube videos. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. This video, as you can see, is very long. It took me a long time to do the tests and a very, very long time to cut all the video down to even this length. I know some people really want to see all the battles and every stat screen. I did my best to cut me scrolling through inventory for gear and so many loading screens. The only negative comments I've ever gotten on my videos are that in my Cultist test video, after determining she wasn't doing major damage and she was going to be support, I did some quick battles to get aggregate data on wins versus losses. I didn't show every single stat screen during that part of the video, and apparently I am a stupid person who wasted their time by not showing the only thing that mattered. So now everyone gets a stupid long video to make sure nothing that anyone would think is important is missing. Before we get started, diamond giveaways. Since this video took a long time to make, I didn't get anything uploaded last week. So what I did was I took all the entries from my previous diamond giveaways, there had been 4, I removed the winners and the duplicate entries and gave all the losers a second chance. That was accepted by the community manager, and you should have already gotten your diamonds by the time I upload this. Moving forward, I'm going to change a bit how I do diamond giveaways. It's fun to make a video with timely stuff like event leaks, but I really want to focus on higher quality videos like my explainer videos that I just can't produce weekly. So from now on, just leave any comment on any of my videos to enter my weekly giveaway. Just be sure to include your game ID. The cutoff will be Wednesday nights. In the YouTube dashboard, I can see all new comments across all my videos. So every week I'll collect all the entries and of course respond to any comments and pick the random 5 winners from there. And yes, I said Wednesday, that's the other change. In about a week, I moved to the States for the summer, so community manager Kate and I will be separated by a few more time zones. So I'll be asleep the time I usually send her the winners, so I have to do them a day earlier now, but it'll still be once a week every week. Alright, so please leave a comment on this video or any of my videos with your game ID by Wednesday night and every Wednesday night for a chance to win one of 5 bundles of 250 diamonds. My diamond giveaway, like all diamond giveaways, is sponsored by the official Hustle Castle community. On to the main event. As you have probably guessed from the title of this video, I have been lent one of the new sets to test out. In case you haven't been paying attention to the excessive amount of new stuff in the game, we got 2 new ancient sets a few weeks back. A Staff Mage, Ice Angler, and a Daggers Tank, Blade King. Both of them you need to buy the materials, or ready essences if you have an excessive amount of badges, from the arena store. Being sold in the arena store kind of makes these sets only available to those who are already doing pretty good in the game. I also wrote an exhaustive analysis of the set descriptions over on hustlecastle.site/news. I wrote that largely as an exercise to decide which one to ask to borrow because, I want the better one. It was a tough decision because I was immediately in love with the idea of a dagger set. Daggers are the fastest weapon in the game, and if you don't understand the opportunities that opens up, then I strongly recommend watching my damage explainer, so you understand base weapon damage, weapon speed, and all of that. However, in the wild, we were seeing some decent looking ice anglers, but not really any good blade kings out there. The ice anglers look like they have the potential for really good damage, but I'm not convinced that most squads would do better with an ice angler to replace their incinerator. Incinerator is of course a staff-wielding mage, so if someone was adding an ice angler, they would probably either replace their incinerator, move all the gear including Dino 1 over, or find room for another mage in the lineup. And this was the big issue for me. I could not imagine myself dropping incinerator. Her res block is too vital. Nor could I figure out a good alliance setup with 4 mages in a 7-man squad. I also can't picture dropping either of my other 2 mages, Cultist or Palamage, so that would leave 4 mages, and there's no good 7-man setup for that. So what tipped the scales for borrowing Blade King was, first, I felt we hadn't seen enough of them, and second, I really want to see how it does against clan territory bosses. Blade King does a lot of direct damage, great for bosses, and it also uses daggers, which are included in all the super boss setups that have been shared recently. For me, at this point in the game, a set that's only useful in one aspect of the game is still worth having. Like when I got Cultist really early on, way before it was clear that it would be a meta set, I figured at a minimum, this would be an Alien Scepter counter to use in Clan War. And in the end, I was pleasantly surprised to see how good it was, but that became obvious over time, not right away. So what to expect in this very long video? We are going to start with some one-on-one duels against a heavy tank. This is to see animations and cooldowns, more of a demo than a test. Then I'm going to compare Blade King to Legionnaire. I'll do some one-on-one duels, some against my own squad with Blade King versus myself with Legionnaire. Then off camera, I dueled all the opponents in my squad challenge with my regular squad. Then on camera, I did it again with Blade King to see if I can beat more or less of opponents that way. Then pretty much the same thing, but instead of seeing how Blade King does in Legionnaire spot, I do the same with Blade King in my second Archer spot. And finally, I'll fight the CT bosses in the Abyss and see if I do any better there than normal. I have high hopes because of all the direct damage that comes from Blade King. First, let's start with some simple tests to get a better feel for how this performs and what the animations look like. Then we'll see how it does against bosses in the second half of the video. Let's start with a super simple test, EUL versus Blade King, to see the animations and the cooldown times. So I'm setting up the stool now. This is going to be the Blade King as it came, all standard gear, no artifact because I don't want to see extra effects happening. And my EUL as is, the artifact I'm keeping because it won't make much of a difference with just one fighter, no allies to res. This is what I've got. It's all pretty standard for an EOL setup. Let's see how it goes. Oh, circular attack happened real fast, but the EUL also turned the Blade King to stone. I might take off the weapon for the next round so that we can see the Blade King without that happening. So, see that green animation is poison, and I actually had to ask for help to figure out how are they poisoning each other. And it was my mentor Nellie who came to the rescue. Nellie figured out right away that the poison is coming from the Hammer Hero relic. The shield protected EOL. So that wasn't as good as I really would like to see it. We can see that the Blade King is doing more damage than the EOL, which is good. I would really hope so. So let's tweak the test a little bit. Here we can see on the amulet, that's why Blade King is getting frozen every now and then. And of course, the weapon is what's turning it to stone. So I'm just going to pull a bunch of this off. All I really care about the EOL doing is staying alive and letting me see the effects happen, get triggered for Blade King. So we're going to redo the battle now. Here we have my EOL, just armor, very simple, against the Blade King. So right away strips the armor. That's working really good. Throwing the daggers. That triggered right away. There's the poison again. I think I need to strip down the hero. Throwing the daggers again. There's the shield, like that burgundy colored shield. That's good to know. Circular attack happened. I don't like how low the health is getting facing an enemy without any weapon. I think we're going to do one more test like this against EOL. Yeah. She even managed to kill the Blade King, even though the EOL, doesn't have a weapon on her. But she has the Blade King has self-res armor, which is how she got right back up like that. Threw the daggers and circular attack all at once. Sorry, that was just me taking a screenshot of the poison effect. Okay, and the Blade King wings, but barely. The daggers look really cool. I have to give it that. Circular attack. And pretty clear victory. So as you can see, I stripped off everything from the hero, and that made a big difference. All the damage that we were seeing happening to Blade King was happening from the hero. Now, I saw a pretty good amount of damage, but I want to do one more test. This time, I'm going to add a couple different tanks with just armor on. This might give us a better idea of how much damage the Blade King can do, because things like their circular attack hit multiple targets. So 3 versus 1, but only the Blade King has a weapon. So she killed some dragons. I'll probably res them back up. There it goes. Circular attack. Throwing the daggers. They got a nice little chunk of damage happen then. And again, I didn't expect much damage from the throwing of a dagger. Circular attack again. I didn't actually see a ton of damage go down during the circular attack. But I'm not very good at following that kind of really exact numbers and damage kind of thing. So, yeah, pretty good damage for how short of a battle it was. Let's do the same thing just one more time. I want to get a pretty good idea of what the cooldowns are for the different abilities. There's a bunch of different abilities here on the Blade King. And I'll turn on numbers this time for those who like that. Again, that's not my specialty. For me, I can't even see those numbers. They're so, even at half speed, they're just all on top of each other. But if anyone can make sense out of that, there it is for you to see. So when there's only one target, all the daggers go onto that target. It's good to know. Okay, so that's enough for this type of demonstration-only battle. I wanted to see the cooldowns, and we got that. We are seeing the circular attack immediately followed by the daggers being thrown, then the burgundy shield goes up. All right after one another, 1, 2, 3. This happens first at the 5-second mark, then it looks like every 7 seconds after that. I'm happy to see those daggers have such a fast cooldown because, as I said, their ability to remove buffs is what I'm really excited about with this set. The circular attack looks pretty good too, and I was thinking that the daggers looked like they did more damage than I expected, but thinking about it now, that is likely at least partially the overtime damage from the circular attack. The one thing I did not see was the crushing blow. This set was advertised as a tank with the ability to insta-kill, but if it happened, I never saw it. Though, as I said earlier, that insta-kill ability is not at the top of my list for what I think is good about Blade King. And maybe that could be an explanation for why I feel so alone in liking this set. If you are focused on that insta-kill ability, I agree it's pretty meh. Insta-kill with a 20% threshold isn't going to happen often, and it looks like the crushing blow itself doesn't even happen often to have the opportunity to hit an opponent with 20% health. But anyway, we've seen the animations for the first 3 abilities. 1, the circular attack with lots of direct damage. 2, throwing daggers that remove buffs. 3, the shield, which I've said before but not in this video, I think will be a mediocre shield since it's based on per hit damage, which will be lower for daggers. Although at the high power level, anything based on percent rather than absolute numbers is preferred, so I'll take it. Not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. Let's move on. Now, I would like to do some me versus me tests. First, I'll try replacing my Legionnaire. I know that's a bit blasphemous. Legionnaire is a very beloved set for good reason, but when I compare the support abilities of these two sets, Blade King sounds way stronger. And I think I'm right that LEGO support abilities are not critical because just look at all the people who have dropped 6 out of 6 LEGO to add Dragonborn jewelry. Adding Dragonborn jewelry adds a good damage boost to basically any set, but the combo is especially popular on Legionnaire. For me, I tested it early on and found that the Dragonborn jewelry did give a damage boost, but I won less, missing the 6 out of 6 abilities. So I know I'm kind of contradicting myself. I like the Lego support, but I think Blade King's looks even better. Let's read them and compare. So a 6 out of 6 Legionnaire once in a while throws a dart at the enemy whose health has dropped below 25%. The dart deals damage equal to that done by the weapon's critical hit. If the dart kills the target, throws another dart at a random enemy. If damage taken is greater than 45,000, 60% of the damage is blocked and added as a bonus to the Legionnaire's next attack. Also covers 2 nearby allies with a shield that has a durability of 35,000. On death, stuns all enemies and pulls them into an area on the enemy side. The stun will last 1.5 seconds longer if the enemies outnumber the allies during the pull. Activates once per battle. So damage from the set, we're seeing a dart thrown, which equals a critical hit. A critical hit deals double damage of just a regular hit. And if they die, they deal 45,000 damage. So really nothing groundbreaking here. I think what a lot of Legionnaire's damage comes from is their spear. And the support ability, they're giving shields to 2 allies. Those shields are pretty good. In fact, not that long ago, many people ran 2 Legionnaires because the shields were so good and they stacked. The game adjusted that and the shields no longer stack, and most people dropped their second Legionnaire in favor of all the new tank sets we've had since then. But I have to say, on paper here, nothing here seems absolutely must-have, though of course we all know Legionnaire is a fantastic set, one of the best. So let's compare it to the Blade King. Oh, this is so long. Once in a while, the unit performs a circular attack, dealing 80,000 physical damage to all enemies around themselves, immediately way more than the dart, and stripping them of their armor. The affected enemy loses 60% of their armor stats and are unable to use their armor abilities for 2 seconds. Also very good. Also, those enemies take 100,000 damage that ignores their armor over 5 seconds. 1,000 direct damage is really huge. The unit deals an extra 25,000 physical damage to the enemies that have been stripped of their armor or weapons. So 25,000 damage is not a huge amount, but if it's not hitting armor, that will be significant. Once in a while, the unit throws 5 daggers at random enemies. Each dagger deals 85% of the unit's attack damage. Each subsequent dagger deals 10% more. When hit, the enemies have a 50% chance of removing all buffs from them. Now, those daggers I don't think are going to deal a ton of damage, and of course, any projectiles can be dodged, but that last part there, when hit, the enemies have a 50% chance of having all buffs removed from them. That's huge. That's what makes Cultist so good. Every 14 seconds, the unit deals a crushing blow to an enemy, inflicting 600% of the attack damage. The damage ignores the target's armor, so again, tons of direct damage is happening here, which is why I'm excited to see it against bosses. Also, the unit is granted a shield whose durability equals to the damage done. The shield lasts for 3 seconds. If the enemy has less than 20% health left after the attack, they are killed. If the target is killed by the crushing blow, the unit's ability cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds. So just a lot is happening there. Some of it might not really be that good. For example, I'm not quite sure how much the crushing blow is going to be. I'm not sure how often that insta-kill is going to trigger. 20% health threshold is pretty low. I think that's the same as the brand new artifact. My last video was about that. And it's really hard to hit that 20% threshold to do an insta-kill. But all that direct damage in the beginning, that's a lot of direct damage. And also, I really love that thing at the end of the second paragraph about having all buffs removed by everyone who's hit by those 5 daggers. So besides support, and really Lego isn't generally considered a support fighter, there's the damage. But look at this. My Lego with all of her gems and event gear has 62,000 DPS. And this borrowed Blade King with no gems and the most basic of basic gear also has 62,000 DPS. And again, that would go up fast with gems. Since a spear is a slow weapon, hitting 2 times every 3 seconds, and daggers are very fast, hitting 2 times every second, all those gems would add up 3 times the increase in DPS on a Blade King compared to a Lego. And again, if you don't understand what I just said, please go check out my damage explainer video. So for damage coming from set abilities, I really feel like the point is going to go to Blade King. Damage from the weapon, that I have no idea. Pirate Spear is a really good weapon that I wouldn't have room for if I replaced my Legionnaire. And we don't really know if any of the event daggers are really great because the only other dagger set, Shadow, has been out of fashion for a long time. Alright, so I've set up another one-on-one duel, this time versus a Legionnaire. And this isn't my normal Legionnaire. I had a few extra pieces laying around that weren't quite as good, so I switched to them to make it a little more of a fair fight. There's still Pirate Spear because I didn't have an extra spear, and it's still event armor, but it's pirate armor, which is good, but not quite so good. Sea Dog, I think it's called. And Blade King won really fast right away. That's encouraging. Did a fair amount more damage. All right, let's do that again. That was over pretty fast. So again, just Legionnaire some of my gear, some just older gear, versus this out-of-the-box Blade King. Armor stripped right away. Stripping armor really does look pretty effective as an ability. All right, now get ready. Here comes the crushing blow. There it is. And with some movie magic, let's watch that animation a couple times. And I also cheated and went back, and this did not happen in any of the previous duels. It's pretty distinct the way the ground turns that color. So this is not a common ability. This has a slow cooldown. I've already done a lot of battles, and this is the first time I'm seeing it. But interesting enough, the first time I'm seeing it, it looks like the insta-kill also worked. And the Blade King wins again, pretty clearly. And this time the Blade King did more than double the damage. So that's a pretty big vote for Blade King, since the main reason to have a Legionnaire is normally for dealing damage. Let's go one more time, because it's still a little surprising to me that Blade King would do so much more damage. I want to make sure that it really is consistently happening. Particularly because Pirate Spear is such a good weapon, it does a lot of damage. To be outperformed by just generic daggers, even though they're daggers and I love daggers, it's a little surprising, so I really want to make sure it's not random. But no, it seems like Blade King is doing much better than the Legionnaire one-on-one. Okay, another pretty clear victory. And another time doing more than double the damage. So one-on-one, Blade King wins 3 out of 3 times, always doing way more damage, despite Legionnaire having the better weapon and Blade King having no gems. That's very telling. Since Blade King is new, we don't know what role it might play in a squad, but LEGO, we know the role it plays, damage dealer. And here we are seeing that Blade King definitely has the potential to be superior to Legionnaire as a frontline damage dealer. When it comes to support, as I already touched on, LEGO does give support. On paper, I think support from Blade King might be better, but we'll need to do more tests to see. Now, let's add the rest of the squad to do some more tests. Again, I'm a 7-man fighter, so this is going to be 6 of my normal units with a Legionnaire versus those same 6 units with Blade King. I've purposely removed the fighter that is normally my Legionnaire because I want to purposely break my Undercover of Night alliance. I can't have one side having a nice alliance and the other side not. That wouldn't be a fair test. As much as I can, I want this to just be a comparison of these two sets and to even out everything else. So one side will have this slightly nerfed down Legionnaire, and one side will have this Blade King, who basically already is nerfed down a bit with his non-event gear, no artifacts. Again, stripped down hero. So here are the 2 fighters that I'm going to be comparing, and this is my normal Legionnaire. She's just going to be standing on the sidelines. And you can see my normal Legionnaire had to lose a few pieces of gear that I didn't have enough spares to make a full 6 out of 6 Lego. So there's my Lego setup. We'll put Blade King into the barracks. And you can see what alliances is forming, just an Invincible and a Cursed Rangers. That's perfect. That's just what we want. It'll form the exact same thing on the other side automatically. All right, set up the battle. One side with Legionnaire versus the in-barracks setup with the Blade King. Turn the numbers back off because I want to be able to see. Nice Dino Swarm. Some Blade King is down. Legionnaire's down. Okay, so the right side won. Yeah, that was fine. I think we need to do that again. The Blade King spent most of the battle dead, so it's not a very good test of the Blade King. All right, let's go again. Nope, not her. Blade King out, Legionnaire in. So with all these other animations happening, it's very hard to see the different moves that the Blade King is doing, which is why I started off with those one-on-one battles. I think they're both laying down right now, Blade King and Legionnaire. They've got res block on. That res block is part of why I don't think I can get rid of my incinerator. It's just really effective. right, this time the Legionnaire side won. All right, yeah, we can see that the Blade King did almost no damage because she was dead for almost the whole battle. If I built my own, I would definitely need to add a bit of survivability to her despite her having tank armor. But I think even just a nice event armor would make a big difference. But for now, I'm going to add on the hamster to my hero. I pretty much always have that on, and I think it might keep the Lego and Blade King alive a little bit more and be a little bit of a better test than them both just being dead the whole time, and then it's 6 identical fighters versus 6 identical fighters. Set up again. Same thing. Let's do this 4 times, since so far one round went to Blade King and then the second one went to Legionnaire. Let's do a nice 4 and see if one side has the advantage. I expected these battles to be close because 6 out of 7 fighters are identical. I'm still dying again. There goes Lego 2. All right, that point goes to Blade King again. I don't know if Blade King gets credit or not for being dead so much, but perhaps some of those removing debuffs happened earlier on and made the difference. And as I said, we'll do it 4 times. So right now we've gotten Blade King 1, Legionnaire 1, Blade King another 1. All right, Lego died and that transported everybody to the back. That's part of Lego 6 out of 6 ability. Blade King is still standing. Oh, not anymore. Spoke too soon. Got just my Dragonborn standing. On the Blade King side, got both Dragonborn standing on the Legionnaire side. All right. And so that's 3 out of 4 victories go to the Blade King's side. It didn't always feel really clear that Blade King should get credit for those victories, but 3 out of 4 is pretty good. These were closer than the one-on-one battles, which makes sense given that 6 out of the 7 fighters are identical. Both Legionnaire and Blade King spent so much time laying on their backs. I would say this test is almost inconclusive, but what I'm hoping it means is that the Blade King's support abilities tipped the scales for the Blade King's team each time, and that's how they won 3 out of 4 times. We can also try both these setups against some other opponents. I put my normal squad back together with Undercover of Night Alliance and Curse Rangers Alliance, so the fighter who is normally my Legionnaire is the one in the barracks. I took some of her gear off and set her up like the slightly nerfed down Legionnaire that we were using in the previous tests. The only difference is that now she has an artifact. And then with this setup, my normal squad, but slightly nerfed down Legionnaire, I went through all of my squad alliance battles 2 times each, and when it was a closer looking battle, 4 times. With that setup, basically my normal pre-existing setup, I beat everyone except for the second to last and third to last opponents. And I needed to do these tests as a baseline, but to save time, I'm not going to show those battles because you guys are here to see Blade King, not my baseline tests. So what I'm doing now is taking the fighter who is normally my Legionnaire and who was my Legionnaire in those tests I just did off camera, and I'm replacing her gear with the Blade King gear. And now we're going to attack, well, not all these squad opponents, but the 7 hardest squad challenge opponents and see who I can beat and who I can't with the Blade King and compare that to how I did with my normal squad with the Legionnaire. I'm speeding these up because it's just so many battles. We'll be here forever if we watch them all at half speed. So first one is a clear victory, as we expected. Take a quick look at the stats for the people who like the stats. I'm sure there is some interesting information here, though sometimes it's going to get a little repetitive because, again, we're going to be doing a lot of these duels. Okay, and we'll do it one more time. Same exact opponent, the 22 million one. Again, very clear victory. So that's 2 wins against this opponent. I have to look at the stats. Moving on to the next opponent. All right, next opponent down at 24 million. Slightly more of a challenge, but still a pretty clear victory. And the stats. You may have noticed that my hero is still naked. I forgot to put anything back on her when I was doing my baseline test, so of course I have to keep it that way now. But I think it is better. I don't want to be testing how any particular hero relic does against all these opponents. I want it to be how my squad does against all these opponents. So maybe there be one that I could have beaten with a filled out hero that I'm going to lose to in these duels. But really what I care about is how the one setup does compared to the other setup, more than just beating all the opponents for the sake of my ego. So there's the second win against the second opponent. On to opponent number 3, the tournament frequenter. This was a 26 million. I'm actually a little nervous because, I've got no hero. One of my fighters has, non-event gear. Ooh, kept standing. Good job. That's another win. Everything looks good here. Pretty predictable. All right, back again. One more against the tournament frequenter. And a very pretty clear win on this one. Very little damage coming from the Blade King. Not the strongest opponent, but not so bad. All right, now we step up one more to the silent one at 27 million. I won against this opponent with Legionnaire. And it looks like I'm going to win with Blade King as well. We have pretty similar squads. And again, one more time against the same opponent to be sure that I can consistently beat them. Yep, pretty good. Quick scan through the stats for anything unusual. Pretty predictable. My archers did really good. Now we're moving on to the third to last opponent, the ordinary player, another 27 million, but this was the first one who I couldn't beat with my regular Legionnaire setup. With my Lego setup, I attacked this person 4 times. I won the first one, but I think it was just luck. The other three I pretty clearly lost. But these are the most interesting battles that I had with the other setup. Longer battles that always went really close, lots of back and forth. It looked like maybe it could have been close several times, but in the end they won 3 out of 4 times. And it's looking like a similar situation here with the Blade King. Bit of a back and forth, but they have the upper hand. So that's one loss. We'll have to do this one a couple times to be sure. I actually get this person in my squad challenges pretty frequently. They have just, a good squad. That's what we want. We want to test it against people who are good. Yeah. So their archer, their dragonborn is just so strong, just filled with red gems. And it shows. It really performs well. I just can't beat someone with a fighter like that. Yeah, mine did pretty good too, but theirs did better. But we'll have to do it a couple more times because it was a close battle. I don't think I'm going to be able to win, but I did win one time with my Legionnaire. It would be interesting to see if I can win one time with the Blade King too. You can hear the little sound effects from the Van Helsing song. Yeah, we have very similar squads, but ordinary player over here is just a bit better than me. This player has taken that extra 3 million in power that he has over my squad and really put it, in places that make a difference. All right, so that's 2 losses. Take a look at how it went again. Yeah, so we both have an undercover of night. Mine's blue, his is orange. Both have a Cursed Rangers. Again, tons of damage coming out of that Dragonborn. My Cursed Rangers is purple. I also got pretty good damage, but just can't compete with those all red gemmed Dragonborns. All right, so that's 2 losses against ordinary player. We'll go one last time, and if this is also a loss, I'll just consider that a loss. Blade King has been down most of this battle, and now pretty much everyone is down. All right, 3 losses. Yeah, again, can't beat that Dragonborn, killing everybody off. But 3 losses, we're going to move on to the next opponent. Next, we have the Expert on Balance, another 27, almost 28 million fighter. Not fighter, player. This one I was not able to beat at all with my Legionnaire normal setup. Slightly nerfed down normal setup, I should say. And it looks like I also cannot beat it with Bleed King. Yep. A loss. Quick look at the stats. And we'll do it one more time to be sure. But it was a pretty clear loss, so it'll probably be a loss again. But for my tests, I'm not really challenging myself against these squad opponents. I'm testing my one setup that I'm doing now versus the other setup that I did earlier off camera. So that one was a loss. So this one also being a loss is actually a tie because the two squads that I'm comparing, me with Blade King versus me with Legionnaire, they're performing the same. I'm comparing myself with those two setups, not, to this particular opponent. No, it's pretty clear. It will be a loss. We're just waiting for it to happen. Blade King did stand up longer this time. Or is that, I can't even tell. Is that might actually my EOL? All those shields, you just can't really see much. All right, there's the loss. So 2 losses against this opponent, the second to last one. They have an Illusionist Alliance, which is not so common in 7-man. It's pretty common in 8-man, though. Interesting to see. All right, and now finally we can move on to the final opponent in the squad challenges. With this setup, we'll be doing more tests still. The video is not done, but at least this section of it is coming to a close. The Storyline Connoisseur with my normal, though slightly nerfed down setup. I did actually win 2 out of 2 of these battles, but they were close. So I'm curious to see how the Blade King does against this opponent where I won before, but it was very close. Ooh, it's not looking good. This is another close battle. Blade King has been staying standing, which is good to see. Through some daggers. Oh, there goes my Dragon's Eye. That probably gave me the win. The dragon that goes along with Dragonborn. Okay, and I did get the win. It was a very long, very close battle, but I got the win in the end. And you can tell we have pretty similar squads. Standard Undercover of Night Alliance. Nice comparison there between their Legionnaire and my Blade King. My Blade King did better. They also use Cursed Rangers just like me. And like all the other duels, we will do this 2 times to make sure that it really is a clear out victory. So close to being done, I can almost feel it. Again, very close. Right now it looks like they have the upper hand. Oop. Okay. So I lost this one. Now, to be consistent with the other times I've had close battles, I'll now do this one a total of 4 times. This was battle number 2, so I had number 1 was a win, number 2 was a loss. Other times, to be consistent with my other tests, when it was close like this, I did it 4 times and kind of gave the win to who won 3 out of 4. So we're not quite done with this round of squad challenge with Blade King tests yet. 2 more times against the last opponent, the storyline connoisseur. This does feel very boring for me, so I assume it also is kind of boring for you guys watching. I know also I have a lot of dead audio time. What I'm planning on doing is when this is done is to cut out as much as I can from little loading screens, well, mostly loading screens, and to make the video cut down in length as much as I can in post-production. So sometimes I'm just kind of keep my lip buttoned on purpose so that I know I'll be able to do that later. And then for times that there is, that I do want to keep the video, there might be some dead audio. So I hope it doesn't feel too boring. I mean, this stuff is time consuming. That's why there's not a lot of people who do really involve testing, because it takes time. Okay, good. A win. So this was test number 3 against the final opponent. That is 3 wins and 1 loss. And we will do this one more time to be sure that I can give myself credit for beating this opponent. Yeah. Same stuff. I got to show the stats on every single battle because I got yelled at for not doing that in my Cultist test video back at Christmas time. Okay. Almost done with this line of tests. I know I've been saying that for a little while now. Doesn't look great, but I really want to win this one. Ooh, that looks better. All right, it is a win. So that's win, loss, win, win with the Blade King setup against this opponent. So I'm going to give myself credit as having beaten this squad challenge opponent. So against squad challenge opponents, my normal squad compared to my normal squad with Blade King in the Legionnaire spot, I beat and lost to the exact same opponents. So in a tie, the point goes to Blade King that has the gear disadvantage. So for this section of tests, Blade King is looking like the winner. I noticed in a few of the closer battles that the Blade King fighter is spending a lot of time dead and isn't doing any damage in the battles where she's dead most of the time. So if I was building this set, I would definitely want some armor and jewelry to help with survivability. Now we are going to move on to the next major section of testing that I'm going to do in this video. I know, will this video ever end? I'm going to bring back my Legionnaire as she normally is with all of her normal gear. And now try replacing my second archer with Blade King. In my squad, I have a Cursed Rangers alliance with 2 different Dragonborn hybrids and my Palamage. Replacing an archer with a tank will make bombers from those 3 fighters instead. It would also be an option to use Battle Brothers and just have the Palamage with no alliance. But I don't want this video to be 10 hours long, so we're just going to look at bombers. If this ends up being something that I keep, then maybe I will try that on my own, and I'll maybe put a note in the comments that I like that better. Cursed Rangers is one of the better alliances, but one advantage of Bombers or Battle Brothers is that those alliances take any talent as long as the fighter class as in Mage, Archer, or Tank, is correct. So that leaves me free to pick any of my favorite talents. Sort of a silver lining on the cloud of losing Cursed Rangers, though I have really neglected building my available talents. So that advantage won't be something I have during these tests. It would just be something that I could potentially improve if I decide to build this setup for real. Again, let's start with me versus me. My Legionnaire is back to normal now with all of her top gear, but I've taken all the runes and artifacts off of my second archer. I've also put on some worse gear in the same sets that she has in the same hybrid setup to make it more about set abilities rather than comparing event to standard gear. And I already started playing these duels against myself while I was speaking about them. The first 2, the Blade King side wins really fast. And then the next 4, the side with the 2 Dragonborn hybrids wins, also pretty fast. I think that demonstrates the volatility and randomness of the Dragonborn set, and maybe also Blade King. Even after all these duels, no one will really know about the set until more people are using it. So this round of tests, Blade King versus second Archer in duels against myself, I give the point to the second Archer. Clearly, a lot of randomness, could also say it's inconclusive, but winning 4 out of 6 battles, I'm going to say is enough to get the point. So continuing with this stage of testing, now I'm going to do those squad challenges again against those same 7 opponents. I'm a 7-man squad, normally with an EOL, Legionnaire, Incinerator, Pala-Ilu, Cultist, and 2 Dragonborn hybrids. In the LEGO section of testing, I added Blade King into my squad in Legionnaire's place and compared that to approximately my normal squad with LEGO. However, most people would probably look at my squad and say if I want to add a new set, there is an obvious fighter to drop and it's not Legionnaire, it's the second Archer. And that's the reasoning behind this section of testing with Blade King in the second Archer spot. I feel like Blade King is more comparable to Legionnaire in terms of the role it would, in theory, play in a squad. But replacing Legionnaire is a very high bar. It's a very good set. So maybe Blade King could fit my squad somewhere else. We already saw in the first duels against myself normal versus Blade King in the second Archer spot that Blade King replacing an Archer actually looks a little weaker. Those were very RNG-ful battles. But the normal setup without Blade King won 4 out of 6 of those me versus me duels. So far, it's actually looking like Blade King in LEGO spot is stronger than Blade King in the second Archer spot. I've already started the squad challenge duels while talking. Just like in the baseline tests and in the tests comparing to LEGO, the first ones are easy wins. Okay, we are still only up to the second of the 7 opponents. So rather than my commentary on these battles, I'll save you all the, she's dead, back up. And instead, I'll explain again why I'm so intrigued by the fact that this set uses daggers for anyone who is first finding my channel via this video. If you are a new viewer, I recommend you go to my channel, subscribe if you will, please. I still need a lot more subscribers and view hours before I can apply to the YouTube Partner Program and request a portion of the ad revenue from the ads that play before and during my videos. But in my channel, check out the explainer videos. Those are my best. And they are not about timely updates or events. They are deep explainers, as the title implies, of game mechanics. And they are never this long. Only testing videos are this long because I don't just want to say what I think. I want to present all the data that I'm basing my opinion on, and then you can draw your own conclusions and just take my conclusions into consideration with that. So as I was saying, daggers. All weapons do what we call base weapon damage, which is what a fighter's DPS is based on, and totally separate from damage from abilities. Each type of weapon, type as in axe, mace, sword, spear, daggers, bow, crossbow, shotgun, wand, scepter, book, orb, has a different attack speed. For example, an axe does 1 hit every 2 seconds, and a dagger does 2 hits every 1 second. You might look at a fighter with an axe and compare them to a fighter with daggers and see the same DPS. But for them to have the same DPS, that means that every 1 hit of the axe has 4 times the damage of the daggers. So yes, daggers generally have a low damage per hit. But here's the cool part. Damage bonuses increase damage per hit. So if you add 100 damage boost with gems to each of those fighters, the one with the axe gets a DPS increase of 50, and the one with the daggers gets a DPS increase of 200, 4 times as much. So you can really get the base weapon damage high on daggers. And the second cool part is that abilities that trigger on hit have 4 times the opportunity to trigger. There is a lot of decent gear out there that does something each hit or has a % chance to trigger on each hit. And that gear will be even stronger when paired with the daggers fighter. Okay, so I have managed to drone on through the first 4 opponents. These are the 4 that with all of my setups, including this one, it was a pretty clear victory, winning 2 out of 2 battles against each setup. And now I'm up to the ordinary player, the first one that gave me a hard time. With my normal setup with Legionnaire and 2 archers, no Blade King, I won the first duel against this player, but I think it was a fluke. I'm guessing that what I did was I killed their super strong Dragonborn early on and managed to get the win by chance, because I did that duel a total of 4 times and only won that once with my regular setup. And then I did it 3 times without the Lego with the Blade King in my squad and lost 3 out of 3. And now here I am with the Blade King again and my Legionnaire, but with just one archer instead of two, and it's not looking good. You might remember this is the player that had that really strong red gemmed up Dragonborn. Actually has two archers, like my normal squad. I don't have two archers right now, of course. One is a hybrid with Van Helsong, actually a 4 to 6 Van Helsong, which is a bit unusual. Normally it's the 2 out of 6 that's most popular. And then, of course, that really strong Dragonborn hybrid in tank armor. I'm playing these a little slower because I think these were the most interesting duels. It was a loss, but it was a close loss. And there goes my EOL. I've invested pretty heavily into my EOL, so she is pretty much always the last one standing. So everyone is pretty normal. We are mostly pretty equally matched, except for one fighter who is way stronger on the ordinary player side. There it is. Right. And to be consistent with the other times, we'll do this duel 3 times. Since I was able to win once with my baseline test, and I did the 4 duels, it seems only fair that I do 4 with all the setups to see if perhaps there is that 25% chance or not. But so far, just all losses. And they all went pretty much the same. Now we can move on to the expert in balance, another 27 million player. So I'm speeding up a little bit because it is a okay match, but these battles were much more clear losses, and we only did this one 2 times because there's really no doubt that I will lose every time I fight this person. And what is most interesting about this squad is they're running the Illusionist Alliance, which, as I said before, is not common in 7-man. And one more time for science. I think these losses happen pretty quick. I'm holding strong, but then, yeah, they just start falling one by one. Yeah, so this squad has, like I said, a little less common setup. You can see they have the Eclipse there and they're running Illusionists. So I can't beat this player. It's nowhere close. But I bet there's some people that I could beat that they can't beat. I just have really different squads. Okay, and now we're moving on to the very last one, the Storyline Connoisseur. This one, interesting enough, was a win with the other 2 setups. Even though it's the, in theory, hardest one in my squad challenge lineup. This is a really close battle. I don't know if we're going to win this one. All right. In the end, it's a loss, and they didn't really even have many casualties. So here we have the first difference between the three setups that I've run these squad challenges on. With every other opponent, either all three setups were weaker or all three setups were stronger. Here we have the first opponent where I was able to beat them with my normal setup, and I was able to beat them with Blade King in the place of Legionnaire. And now that I'm fighting them with Blade King in the place of a second archer, so having both Legionnaire and Blade King in the squad, round one, I lost. And here is round two now. See how it goes. It's a close enough duel. I think if I did this 10 times, I'd probably win one or two. But I don't think I can count this as a win for this squad setup. It looks like I'm not doing very well. So again, in my baseline test against the Storyline Connoisseur, I won 2 out of 2. And then with the second test with Blade King and Legionnaire spot, I won 3 out of 4. There was one loss in there, but I still considered it a win in the end overall. And now this one. So far, it's been one loss, and we're waiting for this battle to end. My EOL is not going to go down easily. And there it is. Okay, so we have the first difference, a loss against the Storyline Connoisseur. Okay, so I dueled these 7 opponents in Squad Challenge, 3 to 4 of them being close-ish matches. All opponents dueled 2 to 4 times, so 16 battles, give or take, with each of 3 different setups. Once with my normal squad, just a little bit nerfed down, once with a Blade King in Lego spot, then last with a Blade King in my second archer spot, forming a Bombers Alliance. Of those 3 setups, this last one with Blade King replacing the second archer looked the weakest to me. Objectively, the other 2 beat the final opponent and this setup lost. And subjectively, it just looked a bit weaker in those closer battles to me. So Blade King versus second archer, the point goes to second archer. Maybe if I had my primary archer and all red gems, then I would be able to use just one, but as my archers are now, one can't do it alone. Looks like I need the damage from that secondary archer. Okay, so that's the end of Psych! We haven't done clan territory bosses yet. Oh, what's that? You stopped having fun long before we passed the 1 hour mark? Yeah, well, me too. This isn't about fun. This is about, well, I don't know anymore. I think I started to lose my sanity somewhere around the 9th battle against Ordinary Player, but dang it, we are going to finish. It seems very likely the game developers intend to keep releasing ancient sets that are stronger than the current meta sets. And yes, everyone seems completely unimpressed with Blade King. I shouldn't say everyone. There are certainly people who are already making it, even Cocolino in my clan, but he runs a very specific super low power squad. And yes, descriptions only get you halfway, but the description for Blade King, if you don't focus too much on that crushing blow insta-kill ability, which I agree is not going to be a game changer, has more damage than Legionnaire. Plus, stripping armor and removing buffs sounds like better support ability than Legionnaire's shields. Plus it staggers. So I absolutely think the set is worth a closer look. Now, what are we doing? Right, hitting CT bosses. I've already started rolling the footage. What are we looking at now? So I have once again placed the Blade King gear on the fighter who is normally my Legionnaire. I'm not going to even try replacing one of my archers against bosses. Both of mine are too important against bosses. They do all the damage. And here I am attacking a level 10 Sporo. I'm going to do this battle 4 times, but only show the battle from the first and then the stats from all 4. Okay, so the results are in for the first boss that I'm attacking, Sporo. I got 31 lives, which is fine. It's definitely in my range of normal for a level 10 Sporo. But when I did my baseline tests, I got 35 and 34 lives. So this is slightly worse. We can see also as normal, the major damage is coming from my 2 archers. We can see here in this first Sporo attack, they each did 17 million damage, which is really good. Combined, they are doing about 80% of all the damage. And the Blade King did 17% of damage. So really, from what's left after the archers, the Blade King did a little bit, but nothing too impressive. I'm a little disappointed. All right, now with some movie magic, we're already on to the second battle, which also got 31 lives, very consistent. The Blade King, again, did 17% damage. Again, very consistent. But again, it's my archers that are doing the vast majority of damage against CT bosses. This time they did 75% of the damage. So again, that means that from what's left after the archers, the Blade King's doing okay, but he's not leading the show or anything. All right, the third attack, I only got 28 lives. This was one of those battles against Sporo that ended really fast. Sporo's ability, that happens sometime. I think it's pretty common. I'm not even going to show the stats for this one. It's a bit of an outlier. Let's just do it again. And here we are. Battle number 4. Again, 31 lives. Very consistent. And again, our Blade King is being very consistent. Here it did 16% of the damage, whereas the other 2 that we looked at, it did 17% of damage. Let's take a peek at the archers too. So the archers combined 78% of the damage in this battle. So this one, I guess, relatively had a little bit better distribution, but again, we're seeing pretty much the same thing. Honestly, the most surprising aspect of looking at these 3 battle results is how consistent they have been, especially against Sporo, which really causes a lot of volatility and strange things to happen. All right, let's move on to Pumbaa. I'm particularly interested to see how Blade King does against Pumbaa. Pumbaa is all armor. All bosses have lots of armor, but Pumbaa is especially vulnerable to anything that reduces or bypasses armor. So in theory, Blade King should be really good here. We're watching the first attack on Pumbaa now, then we'll look at the stats from all 3 attacks I did with this setup. I do normally use spells for a boost, but to make things more scientific, I won't use spells during these tests, except against Smasher, since the baseline is how I normally do it in previous days, and there, since I normally do spells, I'll do spells again. Quick note, I will not be attacking Troll for these tests. In my clan stacks, we reserve the Troll for players who are still a little earlier on developing their squads and need those extra clan coins to get their EOLs. Oh, I should say that for my baseline tests, I got 23 and 21 lives attacking with my normal squad and no Blade King. This is a level 11 Pumbaa compared to a level 10 Sporo, which is why those numbers are a little lower. All right, results are in for battle number 1. I got 22 lives, which is right in the middle of my 2 baseline tests. Blade King did pretty good. 12 million damage is nothing to sneeze at, and did 20% of all the damage done. Although my Legionnaire can also do pretty good against bosses. And just like we saw against Sporo, the vast majority of damage is coming from my archers. Fast forward to attack number 2 against level 11 Pumbaa, and again it is 22 lives. And again, that is exactly in the middle of my 2 baseline tests, which were 21 and 23. The Blade King still did pretty good. Again, 20% of damage and getting 12 million. And everyone else performed exactly as I would expect them to. Fast forward to battle number 3, and it is once again 22 lives. These are some really consistent test results. And Blade King very consistent again, just under the 12 million it did before, and just under the 20% it did before. And once again, everyone else performing pretty much just like usual. And last but not least, Smasher. Since I only get 2 attacks, I didn't do a baseline test for this one, but I always get 28 to 30 lives against Smasher, so it's not really necessary. A quick disclaimer, I don't have a special boss squad. I've built a few over the past year. They are insanely time-consuming to set up. Even with the hanger feature, moving the runes is a pain. I did find using a special boss setup, I could get up to 50% more lives. But then, all too soon, my quote-unquote regular squad, which is optimized for PvP, obviously is always improving, and it would catch up to the boss squad. Then I'd find myself only getting a few more lives for all that effort of changing my squad. More recently, there have been some super boss setups published. I tried once to use something close to it, but I was missing too much gear and talents, and it wasn't an improvement for me at all. literally did exactly the same. So I'm super lazy now. This is my regular PvP setup. All I do is readjust my hero and change artifacts. Don't need Dusty or Teaks or Backstab or anything on enemy res against bosses. Okay, results are in for the first attack against Smasher, and it's 28 lives, which is a little disappointing. As I said, I always get 28 to 30, so this is the same or maybe a little worse than normal for me. Bleed King got 19% of damage, which is good, but nothing standout. All right, results are in for battle number 2. Again, 28 lives, which is fine. It's in my normal range, but it's right at the bottom of it. And again, these particular battle stats look the same compared to the other bosses or also to my normal squad. Now it's time to open up some Prosecco because I am finally done with these tests. If anyone is actually still watching, thank you. I really hope this was useful for you. I know I had been looking for good Blade Kings out there in the wild and not finding any. Actually, I almost never even saw a full 6 out of 6 Blade King at all, let alone one in a good squad. But now, after all those battles, I feel pretty good saying I think it's a good set. On one hand, it's not so daring to say that any new set looks good. We've all noticed that the game developers are making new sets strong to keep us all working hard to stay competitive. But on the other hand, pretty much everyone whose opinion I listen to and respect advised me, don't borrow Blade King, it looks terrible. Though I don't want to over-dramatize. Of course, as many wonderful peers who I have to talk shop with, it's a big game community out there, and surely tons have been singing Blade King's praise just in places that I can't hear. So I want to recap since this video has been so long. So if you have wandered off and are cleaning your apartment while this plays, come back, come back. I'm about to summarize it all. In part 1, I did one-on-one battles with weaponless tanks. We saw that the circular attack triggers at 5 seconds and then again every 7 seconds. A real nice cooldown. And the first 3 abilities, circular attack, throwing daggers that remove buffs, and then the burgundy-colored shield, all happen one after another. The crushing blow ability with the possibility to insta-kill, we saw almost never triggers. But I don't care, that's not what I'm here for. In part 2, I compared Blade King to Legionnaire. I started with some one-on-one battles, and Blade King crushed Legionnaire, killing her every time and doing way more damage, normally double. I dueled myself normal with Lego versus Blade King in Lego spot. Blade King won 3 out of 4 of those battles. And then in the really boring long part, I did multiple duels against each of 7 of my squad challenge opponents. I won and lost to exactly the same opponents when I faced them normal with Lego as I did when I faced them with Blade King in Lego spot. In part 3, I compared Blade King to my second archer, thinking that the second archer was less critical to the team than Lego, and this might be a stronger combination. However, the opposite turned out to be true. I didn't do one-on-one here because that wouldn't really make any sense. Instead, I started right with the me versus me duels, one side normal with 2 archers making Cursed Rangers alliance, one side with Blade King forming bombers. In these duels, at first Blade King looked good, winning the first 2 duels, but then that side lost the next 4. So winning only 2 out of 6, this is a loss for Blade King. And then I did those same long, boring squad challenges. These got almost the same results as the other 2 setups, my baseline and comparing to Lego, except for the very last opponent, which this squad lost to. So even though it's not by a lot, Blade King in the second archer spot was the weakest setup, and is not an improvement to my regular squad. Then in the last part of testing, I hit CT Abyss bosses. On level 10 Sporo, my baseline tests got 34 and 35 lives. With Blade King, I got 31, 31, 28, and 31. Having one battle end early and get less lives is something to expect when going against Sporo, so Blade King did slightly worse here. Then, against level 11 Pumbaa, I had really high hopes. My baseline tests got 21 and 23 lives, and my tests with Blade King got 22 lives all 3 times. So the same, just like with the PvP tests earlier in this video, I have to remember that Blade King here has no event gear, so a tie is basically a win. However, I can't help but be a little disappointed that the direct damage from Blade King didn't have a bigger effect. I guess you really want percent damage rather than absolute numbers when going against bosses to get those big results. And finally, Smasher, my personal boss. I always get 28 to 30 lives against Smasher. Literally, if I dress my squad for bosses the best that I can, or if I go in changing nothing, glory star and all, it's actually a bit frustrating how consistent my results are against Smasher. Today, with Blade King, we got 28 kills both times. So again, in my normal range, but on the bottom of it, so same to slightly worse. I guess I'll still give the point to Blade King though, since no event gear really is a big handicap. It has to be said again, a borrowed set with all regular gear cannot be compared to a fighter with all event and arena gear and full gems. I'm playing the game with a 24 million 7-man squad, and at my point in the game, if I see a potential opponent with one bad or even just dated set, or even just one armor or weapon that's not the best in the game, I'm like, yeah, I can probably take him. I can't bring a out-of-the-box fighter like this into the arena or war at my power level and expect to do nearly as well as my normal squad. So I can only really do these controlled tests. And now, having done these tests, Blade King versus Lego one-on-one, point to Blade King. Squad with Blade King versus squad with Lego, point to Blade King. Squad challenges with Blade King versus Lego, point to Blade King. Squad with Blade King versus squad with 2 archers, point to archers. Squad challenges with Blade King versus with 2 archers, point to archers. CT bosses, Pumbaa, tie, so point to Blade King. Sporo, slightly worse, point to Lego, but hard to say. Smasher, very, very slightly worse, so point to Blade King. So looking at all that together, I think it's a good set. I'm impressed how closely it did compared to dropping my Lego. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't do even better against CT bosses, but it still kept up to Lego, which is really an accomplishment. I can definitely imagine more optimized CT squads utilizing Blade King with good results. So there you have it. One final note before I say goodbye. I haven't mentioned in a while, but I do have a merch store if you would like to support me as well as have a Hustle Castle inspired mug in your home. I worked with an artist to make these. It's original artwork drawn specifically for these mugs. I have a full set and really love them, but the gold coin or diamond mugs definitely stand well alone too. The URL is store.hustlecastle.site. And if you think you might want one, you should probably hurry. There are fees involved with hosting a print-on-demand online store, and my store is actually losing money, so I will probably be shutting it down. I probably already should have, but it's hard to throw away something that you worked hard to build. Alright, that is all for me for today, and let's be realistic, all for me for a little while after producing this monster of a video. Don't forget to leave a comment with your game ID on this video or any of my videos to enter my weekly diamond giveaway, and I'll be seeing you all soon in-game or back here on YouTube.